I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up, the WNW 187 for Friday, April 24th, 2015. And I actually can start the newscast with some good news. And this was really bothering me. And hats off to USA Today for putting it on the front cover. A lot of the mainstream media folks, they didn't think this was much of a story. They didn't cover it much, but they put it in the front. And we sent a carrier group, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, and 9 ships. It was a carrier group. A lot of ships travel with a carrier. And they sent this to off the coast of Yemen to intercept Iranian ships that were allegedly going to supply the Houthi, which are Shia, which are partial to Iran, that they were going to, the Iranian ships were going to go to Yemen and resupply the Houthi rebels there. And the United States sent a carrier group, and the Iranians turned around and went home. A lot of people were questioning, wow, are we going to do something about that or are we not? Listen, the minute they sent a carrier group, boom, you know they were going to do something about it. They sure were. They had to do something about it. There's no way they could not do something about it. This could have been a major international incident. I mean, you know, the sinking of anybody's ship is an act of war. And this could have gotten dicey. I mean, I wonder if we had the Theodore Roosevelt sunk or badly damaged, or we sunk some of the Iranian ships. I mean, this was bad. Now, that's the good news. They turned around and, a crisis averted, at least for now. Now, here's the bad news. There's total chaos in Yemen. The Saudis have been on a bombing campaign for a month. They stopped it for a brief period. Then they started it back up. The Houthis are on a tear. Those are the rebels, the terrorists that are partial to Iran. Al-Qaeda also operates in that neighborhood. Some of the most ruthless Al-Qaeda, who I think probably, at least for now, are teaming up with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is in a terrible bombing campaign where a lot of non-combatants, just regular citizens are being killed with this campaign. I mean, it's terrible. The Saudi Arabians are going after, the Saudi Air Force is going after supply dumps and Air Force bases and headquarters, and they're just bombing the daylights out of them. And they stop for, a short period, and they're starting on, and they're ultimately going to end up sending in their military ground troops into Yemen. Now, I don't know what happens when they clean out the Houthis and they're faced with just the Al-Qaeda, because Saudi Arabia is not Al-Qaeda and is not a seasoned, hardcore warriors that have been in multiple conflicts and know how to fight. I mean, they do have very expensive weaponry, mostly from the U.S. And it's of course the United States was going to send a carrier group there. If Saudi Arabia is not successful in getting control of Yemen and bringing calm to the chaos there, and if they lose in Yemen and they lose control, then their regime, the Saudi royal family, is not long to rule Saudi Arabia. And then you can kiss the petrodollar, which is the U.S. reserve currency dollar. You can kiss that goodbye. They'd be trading oil in anything from rupee to rial to yuan to SDR. You name it, they're not going to exclusively sell their oil in dollars any longer. And a lot of dollars are going to not be needed, and they're going to want to flood home to America, and that's where you get some pretty steep, if not hyperinflation. You get inflation, and that would roil the entire world community. I mean, I don't see how the system would last if Saudi Arabia falls. And there could be major economic upheaval and chaos throughout the entire world if Saudi Arabia goes down. Period. The end. Of course, we're going to send a carrier group there. And of course, we're not going to allow Iran to resupply radical terrorist Houthi rebels. And we also can't have Al-Qaeda there either. So it's a mess. They're talking about some type of peace negotiations with the UN, but none of the sides are anywhere close to having any peace negotiation. The Houthis are not losing. They're getting bombed, but they continue to take ground, continue to hold their positions, and continue to do pretty well there. It's not the tide hasn't turned in Saudi Arabia's favor by any stretch of the imagination, at least not yet. That's a serious ongoing problem. Another serious ongoing problem, a new book called Clinton Cash is coming out, and there's excerpts that are rolling out ahead of time, and it's about allegedly Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, basically accepting bribes in the form of donations to the Clinton Foundation. In one deal alone, $145 million came to the foundation from donors involved in a nuclear deal, a uranium deal, I should say. And according to this book, that paved the way for Russia, a company bought by Russia, which is Russia because the state and businesses are joined, that Russia now controls a significant portion of the uranium production in America. Oh, that's just one deal. Now you're starting to see why, oh yeah, well, no wonder why she had her own server and her employees at the State Department had email addresses on the server. Oh, and all the emails have been erased by her because they were just about her daughter's wedding and yoga classes and things like that. 30,000 emails, and all that was erased. Oh, you think maybe there was a paper trail there? Now, supposedly, General Electric, one of the companies involved in getting a sweetheart deal, allegedly, from the Clinton State Department, says, we're not going to give you any emails. We're not going to do that. I mean, this is huge. This is just starting. For the Clinton supporters that say, in a year it'll all be over, might I remind you that Watergate, which makes this look like a bunch of Boy Scouts, out, toilet paper and trees and soap and windows. That took a couple of years, Woodward and Bernstein. That wasn't one or two stories, and then Nixon steps down, resigns, and, I'm not a crook. Oh, no, that went on for a couple of years. And this is going to go on for a while. And, the also Clinton supporters say, well, this is just, the GOP or right-wing conspiracy. No, not when the New York Times and Washington Post are also doing stories along with this book publisher that wrote Clinton Cash. They're doing their own stories about some of the stuff when there's a huge paper trail. Huge. Then add to that the congressional hearings. This is pay to play. This is somebody in one of the highest jobs in America, other than the president. She supersedes the vice president. She has more responsibility than the vice president, the Secretary of State. She has to interface with the Pentagon, with the NSA, the CIA, the White House. And reports are that the Obama administration, or President Obama, said you can have your foundation, but don't take foreign money. Well, whoops. She did. And, Andrew Napolitano, legal expert, constitutional scholar, constitutional expert, Andrew Napolitano pointed out that, Robert Menendez is being prosecuted for the same thing on much weaker evidence, much less of an infraction. He said, if half the things that are true in this book, she's got big trouble. And that's just what we know now. Wait till they start doing congressional investigations. Wait till the Inspector General of the State Department, they have one, an independent Inspector General, starts looking into this. What happens, if the president, who has a brand new shiny Attorney General, has to turn to Loretta Lynch, who just got confirmed, and has to turn to her and say, you're going to have to, I'm trying to save my legacy here. She is making me look bad. You talk about a bimbo eruption. That's what Hillary used to call these things when Bill Clinton was caught with, some other women. It was a bimbo eruption. He's got his own bimbo eruption. This is trouble. And I'm gonna make a call right now. She will not be president of the United States. No way. No, this is not going to be a one and done or a two and done or be in a year from now. Oh, that's an old story. Oh, no. Oh, there's going to be investigations, congressional hearings in the Senate, in the House. Oh, no. And when Nixon resigned, it wasn't the Democrats that forced him to resign. It was the Republicans. They walked in his office and said, hey, that's it. We can't take it. You're out. You get out. You got to go. You're done. You got to resign or we're going to impeach you. And isn't it funny? A coincidence. Karma. Or what comes around goes around. You know, Hillary Clinton was on the team that helped take down Richard Nixon. Of course, her boss said that she was an unethical lawyer and removed her from some of the stuff she did. But isn't that funny? That she was on the team to help take down Nixon, and now what's going to happen to her? Nixon is probably laughing, rolling around in his grave. No, she won't be president. And it's going to be the Democrats that walk into her office or her foundation or meet her in Scooby-Doo on the campaign trail someday and say, that's it, you got to step back. We're not supporting you anymore. Right? Hillary, was telling Democrats, senators, and congressional candidates, don't campaign with Barack Obama. You know that he's the leader of the party. You know that made him unhappy. And now she's going to be in a position where Obama's going to tell, Democratic Senate candidates and Democratic congressional candidates, House candidates, to don't campaign with Hillary Clinton. They're going to want to campaign with her. And they're not going to let this go up until about 2 months before the November election. Oh, no. If this keeps going, and I believe it will, they're going to dump her. Her poll numbers are plummeting. Her trust numbers are plummeting. She's not going to be president. That's my call, and I'm sticking with it. She won't be president. Oh, and the one last thing I want to bring up. It's widely documented that the Clintons and the Obamas hate each other. There was a guy that wrote a book called, I think his name is Klein, Blood Feud. And he documents that how the Clintons and the Obamas loathe each other. And this is just going to add just that much more incentive for Barack Obama to say, hey, I'm trying to have a legacy here and you're doing this. The FBI might be forced to investigate. The Attorney General might be forced to investigate and charge her. He might have to do it to save face. It could get that bad. We're talking big money here, folks. Big money here, folks. And one last thing I wanted to bring up, too, about the Iran thing that I just want to kind of throw in here, that, that Russia decided to, after, 5 years, decided to sell Iran a missile defense system. Well, guess what Poland is buying from the U.S.? Yep, Patriot missiles. So we, too, are selling missiles to Eastern Bloc countries, for why? For preparation for what? There's another huge hotspot there. The other thing I wanted to bring up, too, with the Iran thing is why in the world that negotiations, when you have the Iranians across the table about this nuke deal, why isn't, hey, listen, we want you to stop this, the Houthi thing. We want you to stop arming, Hamas and Hezbollah. We don't want you to do that. We want you to, back off here with some of this state sponsor. They're on the list of state-sponsored terrorists. Why isn't that part of the negotiation? And why do we have to send a carrier group to stop them from resupplying the Houthis? Why isn't that part of a negotiation? I mean, we have to come up to the brink of starting a war with a country that we're negotiating with? That's crazy. Next up, remember the flash crash in 2010? They said it was they took 600 points off the Dow. I mean, the chart goes, boom, zzz, and back up again. I mean, it's 600 points in a matter of minutes off the Dow. And they were talking, about that, there was somebody's fat finger, quote unquote, fat finger. Stupid. So, just one finger caused 600 points to come off the Dow in a matter of a few minutes. Right. Preposterous. Well, now we find out it was a guy in London in his underwear trading, and they've charged him, and he's being extradited back to the U.S. because 600 points came off the Dow. It was a U.S. exchange, and he was the guy around it caused the flash crash. And incidentally, here just note here that the trades were done through the CME Group. Please note that. I'll explain that just in a minute. CME flash crash. Now, there's a story on ZeroHedge.com that says that, listen, they're giving this guy a hard time because they're using him as a patsy, and they're afraid that he'll expose the fraud of high-frequency trading. You know, in the old days, you couldn't front-run trades. In other words, you hear about a trade that some broker hears about and then goes out and buys that stock or sells that stock and makes money just before. That's front-running a trade. Well, apparently that's illegal, but it's not illegal if you have a high-frequency trading program, which is really just a modern term to front-run trades. That's all it is. It's fraud, in my humble opinion. It's fraud. It should be outlawed. You don't need to have a computer program that makes, thousands of trades in a split second to actually try to invest and make money in the stock market. That's nothing but, gaming the system. And if it was just one guy, I mean, how rickety and fraudulent and unregulated and manipulated is that system if it was just one guy? I don't think so. I called up my friend Greg Manarino. He's a former floor trader at Bear Stearns and also is in part trades professionally and has traderschoice.net today. And I said, hey, what do you think about this guy? He says, oh, no way. No, there wasn't just one guy that did this. And he says, if you really want to know what's going on, you can go back to that day. I mean, it was a 600-point plunge. If you were short, you made crazy amounts of money in a matter of a few, minutes. And he says, if you really want to find out what's going on, find out who made money in that plunge. And you'll find out what's going on. And now back to the CME Group. Now listen, this is USA Today is all over this. This is on the front page of the business section, front page of the USA Today paper. But this is a big story, right? But it's not a big story when the CME Group, which used to be Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and that had all the commodities, corn, wheat, beans, aluminum, copper, all that stuff. But now they're the CME Group because they also have all the currencies, Forex, and also precious metals, COMEX. And in their 10K, they put out, and I had this on USAWatchdog.com, and nobody picks this up. Chris Powell pointed this out at GATA, that, they list in their 10K, they give volume discounts to central banks. Yeah, volume discounts for trades to central banks, entities that can print unlimited amounts of money. Of course, if you could print unlimited amounts of money and had volume discounts for trades, there's no way that you would manipulate any of those markets, would you? Gold, silver, lumber, cotton, oil, currencies. There's no way you would manipulate any of that. But somehow, this is a story, and that's not a story. Unbelievable. Finally, I want to just leave you a note about the so-called recovery we keep crammed down our throats that isn't a recovery. And one of the things that's a real problem, that was a real bright spot, one of the real bright spots in America was the oil and gas industry. And here is on the front page of the money section of USA Today, and this is just one of multiple companies. Halliburton is slashing its payroll by 9,000 people. It's another 9,000 people that are gone. Way over 100,000 oil jobs have been erased from the economy. Rigs are shutting down. Oil workers are being laid off. There's more than 100,000 so far who have been laid off by all this. The ripple effects of all those other industries. I mean, you're talking about more than 100,000 oil worker jobs since this collapse of oil prices that some people say is manipulated, orchestrated. It isn't just a supply-demand type scenario. Maybe some of it is, but it got pushed to be worse than what it is. That said, that these oil workers are making on average $45,000 a year. Some of them make $100,000 a year, and that doesn't count benefits like medical and vision and dental and life insurance and matching 401k, possibly pensions. That doesn't count all that. $45,000 a year. These aren't a $15 an hour, $10 an hour McDonald's jobs. The oil industry shedding off major jobs with major benefits. And we're setting ourselves up for the biggest spike in oil prices with, all these rigs going idle and all these wells that are not going to be drilled and all this oil that's not going to be pumped. Can you imagine what's going to happen to the supply situation in this country in a year or two? It'll take us a couple of years to get back where we were in terms of production. And the price will skyrocket. Absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you very much for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and your donations. That helps us out a lot. My favorite part, fear not. Prepare yourself physically, mentally, and above all, spiritually. Fear not.